Unfortunately.
Those guys have the absolute biggest I've ever seen.
It was like 3 wrists.
Hello? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll tell them.
Can you imagine their center of gravity just being thrown off when they walk?
I mean, they can probably swim really fast because they can steer through the water.
Pipe down, you two. It's time for the mission debrief. In the film that launched the James Bond saga, Agent 007, Sean Connery, battles the mysterious Dr. No, a scientific genius bent on destroying the US space program. As the countdown to disaster begins, Bond must travel to Jamaica, where he encounters the beautiful Honey Rider, Ursula Andress, and confronts the megalomaniac villain in his massive island headquarters. And that's today's mission, 1962's Dr. No. Any questions?
Oh, that sounds like a lot. Do you have anything to help with this?
Got a cocktail.
Doctor, yes.
It's got beer in it.
Doctor, no.
Today for Dr. No, we're going to be making a Dr. No, which is a mix of lots of Asian and German flavors. I think it's great. Hopefully my co-hosts think it's great and doesn't taste like a flower bed. I guess we'll see. We're going to need a shaker. And yeah, I know it's not a Boston shaker. I'm lazy. And we're going to start with a whole jigger of rye. Yes, that is the term. It's bullet. It's fine. I like it. Your mileage may vary. 2 bar spoons of Suze. And no, nothing else will taste like Suze. It's not that expensive. It tastes like Janiche. Tastes like roots. You're going to use half a jigger of lemon juice. Always use fresh, because the stuff you get at the store tastes terrible. This is Rooibos Syrup. I still don't know how to pronounce it, but it's great. I'm not going to tell you the recipe, because it takes forever, so we'll post it in the description. Half jigger of that. And when you make yours, try and make it a bit loose so it doesn't freeze up as soon as it touches the ice, which is an issue I was having, which forced me to drink a lot of syrup. 5 dashes of Peychaud's bitters. Now shake thoroughly, because once again, the syrup is going to want to freeze. And then just a little beer, which this is German Weissbier, which is wheat beer. And then just a fill of it. And there it is, a Dr. No. Whole bunch of Asian tea and German beer. And yes, it's supposed to look like that. Anything else?
All right, agents, to a successful mission.
Doctor.
That's not bad.
I win.
I don't think that's how that works, Dave.
You didn't tell me the show format.
There's just, I don't know, much like the movie, the ingredients are there, but it feels weird. But I think it's just because like we're settling down. This is definitely. I'm really happy that everything played out the way that it did, because when it comes to Dr. No, the first introduction to James Bond, you can definitely see the seeds. And in some things, like some things are fully sprouted, like the style of Bond. In linking it to that drink, it starts off very like it tastes like a garden. It tastes like flowers.
And like Dr. No, there's a hair in mine.
There was a hair in the film gate quite often.
Yeah. All over that fucking film gate. But like it's flowery up front, and you're like, oh, this seems nice. And then it's just a lot of James Bond handing his coat to women.
Yeah.
And a lot of people answering the phone.
Excellent movie.
Followed with a horrible fucking like weedy beer taste. This aftertaste is terrible.
It's pretty bad.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I added the amount of beer in mine because I knew y'all wouldn't like it. I quite enjoy it. It tastes floral. It tastes like a bathroom at a Hawaiian resort, I'm assuming.
It looks like a bunch of alcoholic drinks like mixed together when they're not supposed to. Like it's a Manhattan and a Mai Tai poured in the same glass. It does not have a great presentation at all.
No.
It's definitely better with the presentation in the book. Dave, if you want to take that. Most of the drinks are going to come from that book, where this is kind of setting up the show. It's clunky at first.
Yeah.
Much like Dr. No.
Yeah, it work in progress.
Right.
To say the least.
The number one gadget in it is a hair.
So, first impressions of Dr. No.
I liked it. It was one of those things where you could definitely see the mechanics of like James Bond and that it, like a pilot episode of a TV show. They kind of hadn't put it together yet, but like there's still distinctly James Bond elements. Bond, like Sean Connery has those moments where he gets to be smarmy, but it's one of those things that there's not quite enough because they hadn't really quite developed his persona yet. But you know, for a first installment, I'm pretty happy with it.
Dave?
There's a lot of style over substance. It's just Bond looking cool in various settings. He brings, I think we counted, 4 different suits to an island in the Caribbean?
No. We didn't count 4 different suits. You did, you fucking weirdo.
And they were all great suits, except one. One looks kind of big. But I digress. He brought 4 suits to an island in the Caribbean. It's a lot of style over substance, but it's great. It's just Sean Connery hamming it up, and it's still right now just a secret agent fighting nature and investigating it on his own without GPS. And I can appreciate that, and that was a slower pace.
It's the 60s.
It's the 60s. I can also appreciate that the golfing scene, she was supposed to be naked, but they cut it out, those bastards.
You use the term, it's like a pilot, and that's a perfect example. It very much is. You can see where things are lowered, things are heightened, and it felt a lot like, coming off a fright fight after that 5-year endeavor. It was very much like those early Friday the 13th, where you start to see like, oh, that's where they start to amp that up a little bit. And style over substance is just that's gonna go up to 11 pretty quick.
Okay, so for the mission, we gotta rate our movie based on 5 categories. We've got babes, we've got booze, we've got baddies, we've got gadgets, and we got music. We're going to rate those on a scale from 001 to 007.
So we spent all this time and money on this fucking set, and we can't get our goddamn categories to match up with the same letter?
Unfortunately, there's been a lot of shortcuts with R&D. We can barely get a suit that fits Dave.
I have big thighs.
Ursula Andress, Honey Rider, the literal start to the Bond girl. Great start. I'm never going to turn down Ursula Andress in a bikini, which was, you said, just...
Yeah, it was a cobbled together bikini. They couldn't find an adequate bikini, so they were all too skimpy or too big, so they made a bikini out of shit they found around. There's also Miss Trench, who I believe comes back for another movie. But it's a decent start to Bond babes. And then there's the Asian lady with the beehive made out of horsehair on top of her head.
Oh, the one lady who was this close to getting her arm broken.
Coral was on a mission, let me tell you.
We don't get nothing out of this gal. You want for me to break her arm? Another time.
So with Miss Taro, how is it that only James Bond realized that she was a double agent? Like, she's literally peering through a keyhole.
Because he is the smartest guy in the room.
No, he's the luckiest guy in the room. He's saved by a car, so he doesn't get shot by 3 blind guys.
He was saved by birds in the
He was
jungle.
saved by birds in the jungle. The only reason Dr. No dies is because he doesn't have fucking fingertips.
Because his metal hands turned into rubber, apparently.
No, they added the sound effect of squeeze.
He was scraping. You could see the paint on the wood being scraped away.
It did not look convincing.
It's a fresh start. This is how we're starting our ratings of this, so we need to keep that in mind. Where's everybody's ratings in terms of babes go for the first film?
Middle of the road. 4. Just absolutely okay. Ursula Andress is, she's got a weird shaped head.
I suppose so.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with a 4. I think it was one of those things that, like, they had enough to establish the archetypes that obviously we're gonna see later, and I think they were interesting enough to be good for the movie, and that it wasn't one of those things where in some, like, obviously, like, since Bond's been around for so long, there's cliches and all that now, but, like, we didn't have any of those, like, besides Sean Connery being a womanizer. Like, the ladies themselves, for the most part, when they had, like, their parts, like, they were competent and they did their role kind of thing. It was just, like, the external forces around them is what inhibited them.
I'm going to go a little higher, but just because I like Ursula Andress a lot more than apparently you guys do. I'll go with 5. Because, again, it's you can't really go full on. It's not starting. It's just certainly not the highest level of when you think Bond girl, you don't immediately think Honey Rider, unless you're fucking old, I guess. But yeah, I'll go with 5 on that.
Booze. Now I want to hate it, because in this category, we're rating his drinks, and in this movie, all he drinks is Smirnoff, which is gross. But he drinks a whole lot of it. Whole lot.
Does he actually drink? Does he drink the Dom that he almost bashes over somebody's head?
No. He just drinks Smirnoff. He tries to, while he's investigating a murder, he just randomly pours himself straight vodka. It's hard to hate on that.
Except you did, because you don't like Smirnoff.
That's why I'm not going to rate it perfect, but it's very high. So he has a backup bottle of Smirnoff in case he drinks all his Smirnoff. That should tell you about all the booze in this movie.
Which, in this case, that might have saved his life.
Yes.
Somebody could have poisoned that other Smirnoff.
That was the working theory.
They could have poisoned Smirnoff.
But I'm sure he was just prepared for drinking himself into an early grave. If rating the booze is the exclusive domain of me, just for the sheer amount and inappropriate times he drinks, I'm going to give it a solid 6. I can't go the full Monty with 7 because he's drinking Swill, but in the 60s, the only vodka you could get was Swill. So
you're not the only one that's good. That we all rate all of them, but yes, he drinks a lot. But in the one instance of my life where I don't go quantity over quality, he just drinks Smirnoff. So I'm gonna go 2.
Yeah, I'm gonna go probably with a 3. Like, I like vodka and stuff, and I don't mind it for shots. But yeah, it's the fact that that's all he drinks. It's nothing creative. Anything that could have been more fun to drink is not drinking. Like the bottle they almost bashed over someone's head. So for me, I don't know. I kind of wanted, like, that's one of the things, like it's obviously better in the later movies because, like, martinis and other things, there's more of that archetype.
Which I mean, he does drink martinis here, but
right, but it's
straight vodka martinis too.
Right, it's just Smirnoff in a different glass.
I love it for the inappropriateness of the timing of the drinking and the sheer fucking volume.
Reminds me of your life.
What? My sheer fucking volume is another issue entirely.
Yeah, that's why none of our fucking microphones work. How that got you for real?
So for our next category, we've got baddies. There's There's nothing too crazy this episode since it's just the first movie. We've got Dr. No, who's obviously our big bad. There, at the beginning of the movie, there was the 3 blind mice who were like the assassins, and they were pretending to obviously be blind. There's also Taro, who is our double agent lady. And then there's also Professor Dent, who is a professor who works on the island. He, too, is working for Dr. No. And then Dr. Dent also tries to shoot James Bond in his sleep because he's being coerced to. And then he gets shot because James Bond doesn't take bitches like that. That's all I got. That was my report.
That's exactly what it sounded like.
2 out of 7.
2 out of 7.
The biggest highlight of the baddies is that Dr. No has robot hands, which are clearly not robot hands, but painted wood. And sometimes he squeezes something that is clearly rubber, and they add in the loudest sound effect ever to convince you it's metal.
Almost as loud as throwing a coffee cup.
Almost as loud as the world's loudest fucking teacup.
I feel so sleepy. Damn coffee.
There's one fight, admittedly, the fight scene, especially for the 60s, is good. This is literally just 2 stunt doubles just being told, hey, have at it.
Well, yeah, just because a Scotsman just throws a guy by his foot.
So, yeah, I mean...
So how would you guys rate the
sparse.
baddies?
Well, I mean, it's again, we have to kind of rate it a bit on a scale because it's not going to have what we're used to. We're used to having like a big...
Are we counting the spider as a baddie? Because if so, that boosts it up like 3 slots.
Well, yeah, if Sean Connery... Okay, if Rob and Sean Connery have a vote, I'm pretty sure that the tarantula is way off the scale.
5 out of 7.
I'm going to go 4.
Yeah, I'd say 4. It's one of those things that like Dr. No's fine for a first villain, but like his story isn't really compelling. He's just a bad guy who wants to rule or destroy the world. Everything that he has, his palace and all that, I think there's a lot of fun stuff there. It's a great setup, and obviously since it's like it inspires Austin Powers and all that later, like there's a lot of stuff there that I think works. But it's not like it's not particularly fantastic. It's just kind of middle of the road. So for me, 4.
Yeah, I think Dr. No's greatest crime is just that he's not Blofeld, and he's not all the other more colorful villains that we'll get later on. So that we can't. It's not really fair to hold him against that. And then with the underground layer and all that stuff, like the set dressing, it's very much. Like not only James Bond, just think of the hours of movies and TV shows and video games and books that are just the underground layer of Dr. No's base. It's just cheaper versions of that or more expensive versions of that. With setting up with Spectre, it was the big looming villain of the next 10, 15 James Bond movies.
Spectre. Special Executive for Counterintelligence, Terrorism, Revenge, Extortion. The 4 great cornerstones of power, headed by the greatest brains in the world.
Correction. Criminal brains.
The successful criminal brain is always superior. It has to be.
Why become criminal? I'm sure the West would welcome a scientist of your caliber.
Which, for some reason, when we were watching it, him explaining Spectre got a hearty laugh out of everybody.
Because it's just so, like, it's cool. I love Spectre because, like, we're Nick Fury fans. Like, we like that, like, Steranko weird acronym bullshit. Like, I get a kick out of that. But when you actually, like, spell it out, it's like, that's goofy as fuck. I love it.
Well, part of it too, I think, is like that's also the first scene we like get Dr. No, and his delivery too is kind of funny. Yeah. Just the way he puts lines out, it's very robotic and forced. So the way he conveys Spectre too, I think is part of the problem. Is it comes out kind of goofy.
There were a couple instances where we just outwardly laughed, like the guy on the boat with whose voice is the same, whether he's got
megaphone guy,
Michael Winslow, with the megaphone voice is the same as soon as he pulls the megaphone.
Hey, you guys need to get off that island.
You coming out? All right then. We'll be back. We'll be back with the dogs. Full speed ahead.
No, it's worse than it's just a British guy.
Yeah, it's
like you see this like, oh, it's a Jamaican. It's like, oh, here's a Jamaican guard or whatever.
It's a transatlantic.
Like, oh, I do say, are you on the island? It's the weirdest, stupidest accent.
And they just keep the megaphone effect on no matter when he's on the megaphone or not. It's great.
It's for a movie that is so big. There are parts where it is really lazy.
Yeah.
Which we know lazy. So this is gonna be a pretty quick category. Gadgets. There's a piece of hair and some pomade.
There's a Geiger counter.
There's a Geiger counter.
Baby powder on the lock.
They break off wood and blow onto it.
That's true.
2.
Oh yeah. They also swam in the water so the mosquitoes wouldn't bite them. So if you count water as a gadget, so that works too.
1.5. No, that's a 2.
There's no gadgets. 1.
This movie hates Berettas, by the way.
It really does.
Jesus.
That
2
is
minutes.
weird.
It's a 2-minute scene where they just talk shit about Berettas.
Yes, I thought so. This damn Beretta again. I've told you about this before. You tell him. For the last time.
It's nice and light. In a lady's handbag. No stopping power.
Any comment, 007?
I disagree, sir. I've used the Beretta for 10 years. I've never missed with a jet.
Yeah, maybe not. But it jammed on your last job and you spent 6 months in hospital in consequence. If you carry a 00 number, it means you're licensed to kill, not get killed.
So when it comes to my rating, I'm going to give it a 3. I kind of like some of the stuff that was in the movie. The Geiger counter obviously is the most high-tech stuff we have in the 60s, so I'm going to give that a pass. I kind of like the ingenuity that he had with pulling the hair out and licking it and sticking up on his closet door. So the biggest gadget we kind of have in this movie is the dragon, which is this tank that shoots fire. It looks really kind of stupid. It kills Coral, which upset everyone in the viewing room, predictably.
That got a
rise out of
audible
us.
gasp.
Yeah.
We were all very upset by that.
But it was just one of those things that like it was funny because like the first shot you see of it, it's like 60 feet away. And it's like, hey you, wait, and then it like slowly goes through the mud before they get up to it. So I thought that was hilarious.
Music. For the first 30 minutes and the last 30 minutes, there's one song. It's the James Bond theme. And they play it in different pitches at different speeds for an hour total. Just dun 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 dun, over and over and over. And that's it. And then there's a lovely section in the middle where I think the name of the band is Byron Lee and the Dragonites. And it's a great soca band from like the 50s. And they don't even mention it on the IMDb that's the band playing, just fucking playing their hearts out. It's this revolutionary soca band, don't mention it. And there's a whole bunch of parts in the middle of the movie where it's actually really good and not the fucking James Bond theme repeated ad nauseum.
This movie has 30 minutes of calypso music. 0.
All right, Dave, what's your rating since you love the music so much? Come on, give us a rating.
Was gonna be 5 out of 7, but since Nick hates it, now it's a 6 out of 7. Can't go the full distance because I had to hear the James Bond theme performed in every way possible, but really like calypso and island music. 6 out of 7.
Well, if it's coming back to me, I'm going to give it a 2. I thought the music sucked. Like you said, the James Bond stuff was way too often. I felt like there was a couple scenes, like for instance, when they're walking through and playing Baccarat or whatever, and then the James Bond theme starts playing, even though they're just having like a casual conversation. It should have been different music, and it wasn't. And that was the biggest detriment, was, yeah, it got old real quick. But, I mean, it's one of those things like, the James Bond theme's cool for like the first 30 seconds, and then, yeah, you don't really want to hear it till like you get towards the end where there's a climax or there's more of an actual suspenseful moment. Like, there was too many times where it's just, they're playing the theme and nothing of consequence was happening.
The other thing to keep in mind, though, is we know it's the James Bond theme because it's been around for decades, and like the whole time we've been building this set for fucking 3 months, and every time we come in the room, one of us just goes Bennett. Every time it just happens. So for us to get sick of like, oh, it's just the James Bond theme, like the thing to keep in mind is try to go back to like, okay, like that's a neat theme. If you go back and you watch the fucking Avengers movies, they play that fucking Avengers song 16 goddamn times in the 3 hours that we're in that fucking theater. So I can't really take any points away from that. However, it does have 30 minutes straight of calypso music, so it's still a 0. I just wanted to get that little point out. You guys are shitting on the James Bond theme, and it deserves a little bit more respect. Except the soca, calypso, whatever. You can give it a different name. You can give it a different name. It's still bullshit Harry Belafonte garbage, and it's bad. It's bad.
After our first successful mission, time for our debriefing and finding out the overall score. Q?
Well, I gotta punch the numbers real quick.
You're a scientist, you don't need that.
You're right. The answer is 3. I really hope I didn't shatter the screen of my phone.
I think you'll be alright.
It landed face down. Well, looks like these drinks are empty. Dave, you know your next mission. Nick, why don't you tell the people at home how they can help us out?
You can like, share, subscribe, tell your friends. That's the best way to kind of get these videos spread around the world. We have our Patreons. If you want to throw us a couple dollars and help spruce the setup, that would be much appreciated. In the meantime, I'm going to buy a real shirt because this isn't a tuck shirt at all. It's just got a little logo on it. And maybe we can get Dave to look a little bit less like a ventriloquist dummy. And we'll see you guys next time.
Moderately Neato.